Town of Rome Board meeting to order for Thursday, August 18th for 5 p.m. Can we get a roll call starting from my left?
Jamadi here.
Minter here.
Asbill here.
Goldman.
Bauerheit here.
Number 3, certified posting of the meeting, please.
I certify that on Monday, August 15, 2022, the agenda for the Town of Rome Board meeting for Thursday, August 18th was emailed to the Wisconsin Rapids Tribune at 1:05 p.m., posted at Rome Town Hall at 1:08 p.m., at Quick Trip LLC at 1:22 p.m., and at Nakusa Port Edwards State Bank at 1:15 p.m.
Thank you. Number 4, going to get a motion to approve the agenda.
Motion to approve as printed.
Second the motion.
Any discussion? All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carried. Number 5, please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. Number 6, citizen comments. Have any been presented? No action contemplated except possible referral to future agenda. Number 7, information updates, meeting recaps, recent correspondence, current events, and announcements. Lori, would you, anything to add?
Yes, I have one.
Can you put your microphone down, please?
Oh, I'm sorry. I have one. Recently, there was an announcement for a culinary program that was funded by a recent grant that was applied for by Visit Rome. Will and Lisa had put out for an ARPA grant, and 12 students were actually awarded for the Fast Track program that will be fully funded 100% by that grant. It'll be one semester. They'll attend classes Monday through Friday at the Adams campus. It's 100% fully funded. Transportation assistance will be provided. The students will complete that they'll get 11 college credits at Mid-State in Adams towards the associate degree culinary arts program. They'll have an opportunity for a culinary internship, and they'll have job placement assistance, as well as it'll include the Serve Safe Manager industry certification. So it was a pretty good opportunity for those that did receive that. There'll be people here that could next week, if you're interested, they could talk more about that. If you have any questions or answers, they'll answer any questions you might have, but I think that was a pretty exciting opportunity, and I want to thank our local DMO for offering their assistance in that grant writing program and getting that opportunity here for those people that are now able to participate in that.
Thank you. Dan?
I have nothing.
Dan?
Lake Camelot Frolics are this weekend. Used to just be a Saturday event. Now I guess it's kind of expanded. Starts with live music starting tomorrow evening at 7:30. Festivities begin at 10 a.m. on Saturday. Craft shows, kids games, lots of food vendors on deck this year. Music at night. Shermlot ski team skis at 5? 4? Nope, 4:30 is what it says. We're both wrong. There's raffles, silent auctions, kids games, like I said, adult games. It's a big event for Lake Camelot. Allows them to do a lot of improvements on the grounds. The last big project was the new playground equipment. So hope to see everybody there.
Great. Bob?
Nothing.
Jamie, I'll let you go before me, just in case.
I just wanted to bring up, I left on your desk tonight the letter and the flyer for our fall brush pickup. So this was posted on Facebook and on the website. We will also get it out through some additional methods, but there will not be individual letters sent to property owners this year because we are doing both the east and west side of town. So please share this information with your friends or family, or maybe with individuals that don't have access to Facebook or to the website, to make sure that they would know when the dates are. They are different if you are on the east or the west side of the community, just to allow enough time for Public Works to get around and do the pickup. So,
Is there some way that we can semi in real time communicate what roads have already been cleared?
we can try, yes.
Like,
We can try. I mean,
if you do a link to like a Google spreadsheet or something that Brad can just cross off a road when it's done, so people can go there and
Good idea.
something, because I know what's
Yeah.
gonna happen. Somebody will throw something out, and then somebody will say, oh, there's stuff still here, so I'll put my stuff out. That's what happened last year, right? So,
I think we always have a slight piece of that happens every year.
yeah.
But
yeah.
it would be more difficult, because Arrowhead Maintenance takes care of Arrowhead properties.
Yeah.
So it would be more difficult to do an Arrowhead, because we wouldn't know necessarily where their maintenance crew is versus our maintenance crew. But we can,
Well, kick around some ideas.
yeah, even if we did large sections, like we're done north of D, that kind of thing.
That'd be good to be able to communicate.
Okay.
Anything else?
No,
Jamie and I attended a Adams County unit meeting, was that 2 weeks ago?
yep,
And we found another grant opportunity. Appears Portage County received $600,000 federal grant money, and that was from Representative Kynes, what was that, his mouthpiece there? But
Amy Subring was
yeah,
there.
so we found out there are other funds out there, including federal, so it's another area for us to start looking. The other thing, a week ago last Tuesday, we had Mad Dog and Merrill at the town center. It was attended by many. I guess it was the largest event they've ever had for a taping. We had a good time, actually. And then we also started last week testing additional locations on all 3 lakes for E. coli. We picked 3 locations on each body of water. And the readings, typically, if you're above 235, you have to put on an advisory. If you're above 1,000, you have to close the beach. Our highest reading was 34, so we're looking good as far as locations we hit. We did mostly the beaches, so we're going to continue doing that through up till Labor Day. So that's all I've got.
Just going back to this flyer for a second, can't we put this out on an email alert to people that we have email addresses for?
It would have when it got posted online today.
I got it.
I didn't get it.
Yeah, it would, if you're signed up for news and notices or the spotlight on our website, you would have already.
Maybe I'm just signed up for all meetings and not news and
Yeah.
notices. Okay.
But I gave you a personal copy.
I'm just thinking
You sign
my,
it?
my neighbors and friends across the lake and around.
All right, number 8, department committee reports.
Happy to take questions if there are questions. I would note, Brad attached a nice, piece to his report that comes from the Wisconsin, Transportation, from the DOT on road basics after our presentation. He found that nice piece and I asked if he included it with his report. Thought it was a good reference piece.
Anybody have any questions?
I do have a question on the tires that were listed. Will we be talking about this at budget time or later on this evening, or the replacement of these tires, or should I ask my questions now?
We're talking about replacement of tires in Public Works or,
For the fire trucks. Says routine maintenance and inspections were performed on all trucks, and the listing of the tires are attached. Says all trucks are expired in accordance with NFPA 7 years. Will we be talking about that at budget time, or,
it would have to be addressed through budget time, yes.
okay, because there is some questions that I do have in regards to those tires expiring and when we're going to be talking about replacement.
So I did not have fire slated for September 15th, but why don't I slate it just for that conversation as a pre-op before budget would be presented for fire?
Okay, because, yeah, I want to talk about those in greater detail then, because I did have some questions this evening, and I can save those, because I think that's something we will need to talk about at greater length. Okay, thank you.
I had a few items. Syracuse, they're up 19% in sale, ridership this year?
Ridership, yep,
Does that include revenue, or is that just ridership?
it's just ridership.
Okay, and then we're in August, almost halfway, 3/4 away. Can we get a June operating statement and for a 3-month and a quarterly and a half-year operating statement, revenue and expenses for Syracuse?
Yeah, it's gonna come as parks, right? So we don't.
Either way,
Yeah,
let's see.
it'll all show as parks, but it does note it as Syracuse and non-Syracuse within parks. So last month, you would have got it for the whole town, which would include the parks budget, but I can print specifically parks,
Yeah.
yes.
I mean, all the numbers that are applied to Syracuse, you should be able to pull them out and separate them out, so.
So you asked for an operating statement the last time, so Did you get one?
No, but it was in the full financials for the town, but it's hard pulling it out of there, so it's best to have it all separated.
Yeah,
I'd like to see it separated, just like we do with the water department.
I've been providing quarterly for the whole town, so last month you would have gotten through the 6-month period.
Right, the budget comparison which Supervisor Goldman asked you for, and you said we'd only get that one quarterly, so,
I don't know that it's as helpful monthly. I don't know that you're
Right.
gonna see vast changes, which is why
Right.
we've been doing it quarterly.
Quarter's
But
good.
I can print one that's specific for parks for halfway through the year.
Okay.
Yep, it's just, you'll wanna note, the items do specifically say Derek Hughes or non-Derek Hughes, cause all parks are included in parks budget.
Okay, you had a few more here. And along as Chad's here, splash pad. What's our timing on that? Is it 10 minutes on the meters?
8.
8. Have we cut that back? I was watching kids out there on Saturday. They seem to hit it, go running around different spots. Just wonder if it makes sense to.
We cut the
Look at
flow
time.
down 2 years ago, I believe, so that it's not at full pressure any longer.
And how many meters are on there?
Just one.
Just one button. They all operate.
No,
Well, one button, 5 fixtures will go for the first cycle, 5 fixtures for the second cycle, 5 fixtures for the third cycle. I don't know, I'm just saying 5, it might be 6.
it might be 3.
I don't know exactly what it is, I don't remember.
But every time it cycles, that same 8-minute cycle.
Yeah. Well, I don't know if 7 minutes makes sense. I mean, the kids they're running all over the place. It's not. They aren't spending. I don't think 8 minutes at each location. But who knows? Think
They're
something to
having a
think
great
about.
time, I can tell you that, because they're using it a lot.
Oh yeah,
yeah.
they are.
Follow-up question to that then, how many wells do we have over there for that splash pad and for the sprinkler system now on the main lawn?
That's on city water, no well.
What did I say? I'm sorry, how many, for the sprinkler system then too, that's on the city water is,
No.
They have separate wells for sprinkling.
There's a well for Rome Town Center Park where the band shell will be in watering that lawn, and there is a well by the gazebo that waters that lawn, but the gazebo bathrooms are on municipal water.
so there's 2 wells.
No, there's 3. There's also a well for the park, Great Lawn area that was just put in 2 years ago. And there's another well on Timberline Parkway coming in to water the parkway.
Oh, the median where you come in.
So there's 3 wells separate from city water.
Yes.
All right, thank you.
And one last thing, this has to do with Public Works, I guess, and maybe Chad can help. We had a comment from a resident about the road conditions. They didn't discuss it very well. It was very poorly written, in my opinion. However, they had a point in there that there are lumps in the road, I guess, or depressions in the road, and it might be from utilities going under the road. We thought about different ones. Water's down, what, 6 foot under? What size pipe and then what size hole did they put in for that?
Like a 2-inch hole.
You wanna come up to the mic, Chad, just so others can hear?
You might be able to help us on some of the other questions I have in this.
Okay,
You're on.
okay. Usually the bore is about 2-inch hole and 1.5 inch. Same with, pretty much with Solaris and that. Their bore holes are pretty close to the same size of the pipe they're putting in.
And you're down at 6 foot.
6 foot.
And then
They're
electric-
down, they're probably down anywhere from 2 foot to 36 inches.
Solaris?
Yeah.
So,
Some of
and we have Sandy Soil here, obviously, but it does seem like it might be utilities. I've seen them too, where you get the dip in the road there. Is that from any particular utility or any thoughts on that?
It could have been even from our utility from years ago if it wasn't compacted correctly, when they had the
If you're
roads
down
open.
6 foot, I don't know.
If you bore it, I don't think you're gonna see it. I mean, we only started boring over the last probably 10 years now, boring under roads. I know prior to that, most of the stuff was already in.
Yeah.
If you look too, there's a lot more dips on the road than there would be utility entrances going across the road.
Yeah.
I mean, I can always look at, if you can give me some ideas of where these are, I can look and see if we have water service running
I'll
right
send you
there.
some of the notes.
But
But, well, it's really more of a thing for Brad, I guess, but the
I
question would
can't
be.
see a 2-inch hole settling that much to.
It doesn't make
6
sense,
feet
no.
down, no.
No, the water didn't make sense, but the other ones, I'm really wondering if they're going 2 foot under for some of the other ones. If they're, or 6 inches maybe, who knows? I don't know.
I know when they just did all of Solaris, I know they're actually 3+ feet deep.
Mm-hmm.
But most of that stuff is, except for crossings, were bored way off the property, or
Mm. Well,
by the
yeah,
property line.
the point then becomes, if, utilities causing the issue, what's the remedy? Nick?
Well, there's statutory provisions that cover damage to town roads.
Yeah.
So I think it starts, without speculating, right? It starts with conversations with Brad and identifying where these locations of concern can be. And to the best that we can, understanding what might have caused it.
Okay, yeah. Donna, we'll come to this, well, thank you, Chair. Donna?
I just wanted
Name
on the
and address, please.
conversation,
Don't touch?
okay? Just a perfect example of where those dips are is I went down St. Andrew's Trail. And they're not real deep, but I mean, it's almost consistent. So I mean, if you're looking for examples, St. Andrew's Trail is one that has these dips in them. And they're not real wide either. I mean,
Yeah, it's just a dip.
Yeah,
Yeah,
so.
thanks. Yeah, I think it warrants or not speculative, but research. And that's,
I have a question on
go ahead.
another bill. I see that we're renting a skidster for $4,000 a month out of a Derek grant.
Yep.
And we have 2 skidsters of our own. Are we always using that skidster at Derek Hughes? Because I also see that we had a bill last month for Dirt Monkey, and they also do our trails out there. And then we do sometimes, Brad has in his reports that we're doing our work out there. So is that rental, my question is that rental a good use of the grant money?
So, yes, now that we've expanded quite a bit of trail out there, the grant does allow for us to have that equipment. We rented it, wouldn't make sense at this moment for us to have it additional to purchase. Dirt Monkey's work out there has actually been more with the challenge course.
Okay.
So while it's still grooming, it's with the stuff that's actually the tires, the trees, the obstacles that are part of the course. And they're resetting those because as they get rode, the tires come up out of the ground. And we're talking tractor tires and loader tires that are coming up. So they're resetting that challenge course.
Okay, thank you.
Anything else, anybody? Thank you. Discussion and possible action on the following items. Number 9, discussion and action approval of the July 21st, 2022 meeting minutes. Can I get a
Move to
motion?
approve the July 21st meeting minutes.
Second.
Any discussion?
Yes, I have some corrections or some comments regarding corrections. On number 15, talking about budget priorities, down under number 15 where it said, and the signs in town are unreadable and dented, just so there's an understanding, it was road signs, if you can add the word road signs, it sounds like it's part of the cemetery signs. Maybe just add the word road signs are unreasonable or unreadable and dented. And then on the back side, underneath where we talk about, on the very top where it says, Chairman Hasdall presented 6 pages of information. The last sentence says, after much discussion, the consensus was that 1 input per property. That is inaccurate. There was no vote taken. There was not consensus. I was not in agreement that there would be 1 input per property within the Tri-Lakes Management District. So I don't know how you want to correct that, but that is not a correct statement. Then down further in 1, 2, 3, the 4th sentence, it says consensus was reached that the Tri-Lakes Management mailing list would be used. Again, no vote was taken. There was not a consensus. So I don't know how you'd want to correct that as well. Then in the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 5th statement from the top, where it says Supervisor Jamani explained that she would not be given the opportunity to vote because even though she's a Lake Arrowhead member, she's not in the Tri-Lakes area. I'm not sure, I know it's hard for Amy or the clerk at this time because there's more information being taken because of community input. What I was trying to convey is that myself, as well as others, even though they may be a Lake Association member, they're not necessarily in the Tri-Lakes in the Tri-Lakes district. What I was trying to convey is that I don't want our community to be divided, and they're not in the Tri-Lakes district. So I'm not sure how you want to convey that, but others will not be able to vote as well because they're in that Tri-Lakes district area. And I feel that the entire town needs to be vested. I mean, the entire town is vested. So again, I'm not sure how you want to correct that first sentence, but I was trying to explain that I will not be able to vote, but neither will other people who are in that Tri-Lakes, that are excluded from the Tri-Lakes district area, even if they are an association member.
Go ahead.
A general suggestion for the two items that reference consensus would just be to reference that at that point discussion surrounded those things, because I think the result of which was that it's coming back here, right, for consideration. So I think discussion surrounding those things is probably more appropriate than consensus. As Supervisor Dramati said, there wasn't a vote, and there was differing opinions on how to handle it.
Is that a correction to the minutes?
I would say that.
I mean,
so,
is that a
yeah, we
correction
need
to the
so that was,
motion?
well, that was brought up. I didn't think it was brought up as an amendment, or as an amendment to the motion, so you'd have to agree to those, or make an amendment with those, built in.
I would agree to the road sign issue. I think there was consensus among the board members, though, about the mailing list. If we need to have a motion and a vote, we can take care of that tonight when we discuss this item again.
Was a vote necessary?
When I say consensus, though,
Doesn't mean
I
everybody.
think majority.
Yeah.
That's what I think when I say consensus. And I felt there was consensus last time. Lori was not in favor, but I felt the other four made their opinions clear.
And I'll just make a general statement about minutes, right, is that, so the clerk's role is to interpret the minutes and present them to you, and then they're subject to the board's approval. So, I mean, if you all approve the minutes as it's presented or amended or whatever, those would be the minutes that would be the official minutes then. So at this point, they are draft, and like I said, I haven't heard an amendment, except maybe Supervisor Barheit amending potentially the sign.
Yeah, I believe it was my motion to begin with, correct? So, yeah, I would amend my motion to include item 15, the road signs are unreadable.
I guess as the second, I would have to accept that, yeah.
You don't have to, but.
Well, I know,
if
but
you-
the proper order of operations is it's me, right?
Correct.
Okay, so I accept the amendment.
Any further discussion? All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion's carried. Number 10, discussion and action. Checks, vouchers, receipts, and journal entries. Approved checks number 44380 through 44468 totaling $491,958.23. Auto payments totaling $154,260.94. State Social Security Medicare withholdings totaling $39,160.04. Payroll vouchers V19099 through V19250 totaling $107,108.05. Receipts numbers 23640 through 23761, 23787 additional, totaling $691,211.67. You get a motion, please?
Move to approve the checks, vouchers, and receipts.
I'll second the motion.
Any discussion? All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Nay.
Motion carried. Number 11, discussion and possible action, resolution number 22, amending the 2022 Town of Rome water utility budget, $75,000 from decreasing reserved funds outlay, engineering cost, capital expense, and water line repair maintenance, and increasing transportation expense for the purchase of a F-350 truck with dump box. Chad, would you like to come up and
So there was
explain
a
yourself?
resolution included in your packet that outlined that this did go through the Utilities Committee and they did recommend approval for this evening. It also outlines the dollar amounts that would come from each one of the funds. Reserved capital outlay would be 12,000, engineering cost 26,000, capital expense 30, and water line repair and maintenance 7 to equal that 75,000, plus the sale of the current vehicle 15, in order for the purchase, along with the specifics or the schematics of what the new vehicle would be that we are looking to purchase.
And I'm bringing Chad up. I had a question for him today. I did talk to him, so would you like to go ahead and?
Yeah, I'll start. So, just over the last 10 years, digging and main break service, new services have been going up. We literally take our tractor, borrow a dump truck from the town, rent a dump box from up at one of the rental places in order to get stone, dirt, remove sand after or during. This last one, we've had 2 breaks in the last month, where your sand gets so full of water, you gotta pump it out. We need stone. We couldn't find, they were using their dump truck. We had to rent a regular dump trailer like you and I were talking about. So last year we had 42 excavations. This year we're at 15 excavations, and we do our fall projects coming up. So the reason for this being is I was looking at possibly doing it for next year, but talking with all the different dealerships, they're canceling chassis orders. I don't know if we're gonna get them in a year, don't know if you're gonna get them in 2 years. So knowing that we budgeted for all this extra stuff this year, like the water service installations for Sherwood we're not doing, so we budgeted engineering cost. We did have a little extra from our SCADA system, because when we budgeted last year, the company we had was at 50,000. We're doing this for 36,000, and so on. So I talked with these guys. There is this one the last one that they're building. So I'm requesting the purchase of this and trading in the Ford 250 that we have. I looked into what we discussed as far as a trailer, instead. Well, one, the 250, it's really limited on how much we can pull with a dump trailer, that's one. Second is, it's an extra piece of equipment. I really don't have storage. With this one here, when we go to do a main break, we can load up with stone, pull our trailer that has our shield on it. There's a lot of places we can't use shields anymore because of all the utilities, but when we do, we can take our shield out. We have everything right there. We can dump our stone as needed. We can haul out sand when we're done, versus trying to find, in that emergency situation, a vehicle, a dump trailer, or borrowing theirs.
Yeah, I didn't really get into the reasoning. The reasoning was that, how often do you replace these, what do you think replacing this dump truck lifespan? And I'm not talking about the accounting number, that's a
No,
goofy number.
no, so we have this truck now for 10 years. It's a perfectly fine truck. I'm not just trading a truck because I want a new truck. It's just we don't have any real use for it anymore. Before it was a truck that we used for service. Now we have the 2 service vans. We use this one for snow plowing and pulling trailers. If we can get a little more use, plus, I don't know if I want to say out loud what we paid for it, do I?
It was
Back then?
less.
It was a lot less.
I can't remember
It was
that
a
one.
lot less, it was worth less than it's worth pretty good amount of money right now to be able to trade it in and get almost half of what we paid for it.
Will the plow mount fit on the new truck?
This new truck comes with a new plow.
Oh, it does, okay.
Our plow was 2007. When we bought our first truck in 2007, that plow went to this truck that we have now.
So you're gonna sell the old truck with the
With the
plow on
plow.
it? Okay, I'm sold.
Yep.
It'll go to
Get good
Wilson.
money for that,
It's in
yeah.
surplus.
Yeah, and I'm not questioning the need for it. My thought process was if you have just a dump truck, you're limited utility for it. However, if you do purchase a new truck, a 1-ton 350, and you purchase the dump trailer separate, you're gonna probably get a lot more time out of the dump trailer. I don't know if the initial expense be less or more at the beginning. Over time, I'm assuming it'd be a lot less because that trailer's gonna last a lot longer. But if you got storage issues, that's another
We
issue.
don't have
so.
any place for storage.
Okay, all right, I just thought I'd bring it up, but I'm good.
So you will, if you approve tonight the resolution, you'll see on the next agenda that surplus request for that existing truck, cause tonight, then we would place the order to ensure that they can get the truck and that they'll get it set up. That will allow time for us to get the other one listed on Wisconsin surplus.
Okay, so we get a motion?
I move to approve the resolution regarding the town of Rome water utility budget, transferring the $75,000 from the maintenance account, I guess, to the transportation expense account.
Second.
Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead, second. You second?
Yeah, second. Yep.
Any discussion? I have another question. It does say reserve funds outlay. I believe there was a separate account set up for trucks, and I believe the water utility has to have a reserve account for each capital item.
Yes, we do, and that's the other reserve, the 12,000 that's in there.
Okay, I'm good. Any further discussion? All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carried.
Thank you.
Thank you. Number 12, discussion and possible action, 2023 budget priorities discussion. A, estimate for 2023 wages.
Do you wanna read them all? And we can just.
All
go through
right.
this?
B, estimate for health insurance. C, estimate for commodities, fuel, utilities, and supplies. D, final statement of changes in equalized value, net new construction, and TID value.
I might take them D to A instead of A to D. So.
Good news first.
I did email on August 2nd our preliminary equalized value and change in the TID and net new construction. That was all very positive news for the town, very positive news. Our equalized value is now over 1 billion. We're a $1 billion community. Our net new construction was a wonderful 7.19%. And our change in the TID value was over $27 million. So
Get any calls from anybody on that?
it very, besides government geeks, I don't know that everyone else is running to the website to check out preliminary and final equalized value. So these numbers did not change. The final was put out August 15th. So these will be the numbers that we work off going forward to put together a budget for our levy. So that's very good news. Those finals were included in your board packet. As far as estimate for commodities, including fuel, utilities, and supplies, we obviously did have a bump with our increase in fuel prices this year. Fuel prices have come back down. We are at this moment thinking that 3% in the budget for those items likely will be okay, right? We do expect there might be still some volatility, but we're thinking 3% on fuel, utilities, and supplies as increases. On health insurance, I know I had previously mentioned that one of the main providers for the state plan, which we're members of the state plan, is WEA Trust, and they are leaving the market of providing health coverage. So after this, the end of this year, WEA Trust won't be a member of the state plan that we participate in. There are still many other providers that are members. We did receive notice today that the Security Health Plan will join the system for the state, and through open enrollment, we'll have to, people can make the selection if they wanna go to a different provider. But what that means for the budget is that we, at this moment, just to be safe, will put in a 20% increase for insurance costs, just to ensure that whatever that change is, that we're able to make up that difference. We do expect that it will be an increase. The state insurance board did say that they're trying to keep those increases down and will tap into their own savings to help offset that cost for this year. But they provide both the state employee plans, and we're a local participating employer for those plans. So how that savings might break down between state plans and local participating employers' plans remains to be seen, and we likely won't know that until right before open enrollment, which is September 27th. Lots of conversations with the state about getting that information earlier. What the state has said is that it takes time, once you visit the doctor, to get all that final billing information in to make their final decision of what they would be for pricing, which is why we get it so close to open enrollment. So, an update on that you would see in budgets a 20% increase. Once we have final numbers, we can always back that off, but then we know for sure, well, I shouldn't say we know for sure. We hope that we cover that extra expense. And then as far as an estimate for 2023 wages, we also wanted to have the conversation tonight about what we might potentially be thinking for a number. Certainly there's been conversation if, because of inflation and the economic climate and retention of employees, if that would be a higher number. Usually we're around 2 or 3%. The years that I've been here, I should say, we've been around 2 or 3%. But what would we like to consider? I just would like to have that before we start to bring budgets to you on the 15th. Because if you have a different thought, or you're going in a different direction, I wouldn't want those numbers to be so substantially different that we would be, moving in a different path. The other piece that I put on here, the items that were brought up as priorities, I did put some numbers to that just to give an idea. And Supervisor Giamatti had brought up the piece about cemetery improvements, and we did have a starting of a plan in there to put into budget, so we would have some numbers to associate with that.
Didn't they just do a bunch of work out there in the cemetery? I saw something on that.
We did a cleanup of some brush and timber,
Yeah.
and we did some maintenance to the fence area at Spring Branch. Yes.
Still more to go then.
Yep, so in that, what we've put together here would be that in the next year, we would do crack filling in the driveway area through Spring Branch. New Rome is not paved, it's gravel. Then in 2024, we would replace the flagpoles that are at Spring Branch. There are quite a few because we do have the Veterans Memorial there, and on Veterans Day and on Flag Day, we do celebrations out there, and those flagpoles then have all of the armed services that are displayed in addition to additional American flags. And then replace the fencing at New Rome in 2025. So that has a chain link fence that's in the front, and then in the back, it's a older wrought iron fence that would go out before you'd hit Petenwell.
What I'd asked about for the cemetery, Spring Branch, or the older New Rome Cemetery, that fence has been there for quite a while, and I believe that cemetery is actually, that fence, even though you put that out for a later date, there's no fence right now at Spring Branch, and that cemetery gets pretty well beat up with ATVs and snowmobiles in the wintertime. In fact, the first summer and winter that my father was there, his grave got ran over by snowmobiles and ATVs. There's a gentleman that has a lot right next to the road there that still thinks that one road is his driveway. And I sent you pictures.
I can attest to that being the situation.
Thank you. And there's a road that goes there in the back. I still don't know who cuts the grass there, but they also think that road in that cemetery, I don't know how it gets used. I asked you if we could check and see what a fence price would be around that cemetery, maybe if we can't even do all sides at one time, because there are enough bushes on the one side. I appreciate and thank the staff, Brad's staff, for taking care of the dead trees and cleaning up the old flowers. I have gotten information from other cemeteries and their caretakers on what we could do about year-round maintenance. When I said about the disarray at the last meeting, I was talking about there's a number of old stones there that actually have trees growing through them. They probably no longer have family members that can even probably look in on them, and that's what I talk about as far as care and upkeep. That we need to maybe at some point look into what we can do about those older stones, but having ongoing maintenance about and rules and restrictions as to how long flags and things in that sort of nature can be out there and how long they can hang there. As far as those flag poles, I don't think they should be out there year round, and a lot of those veterans that used to take care of those have either died or moved on to other posts. So as far as replacing those flag poles, I don't know if we need to spend that money right now. One of my questions for you regarding that fund is that, did you buy or purchase the software that you had budgeted money for?
Yes, it is
You did.
purchased.
Okay, great, thank you. But I'm wondering if we could still look into a price for a chain link fence around at least two sides, or the perimeter of two sides of that cemetery. And put off the New Rome Cemetery for another time, because at least that does have some fencing on it already protecting it.
And just so 2023 would be the crack filling, 2024 would be the flagpoles, 2025 would have been the fence at
Right.
New Rome, so.
And I think maybe we need to find out how or what we need to do about taking those flagpoles down so that they don't get so beat up being up year-round, because they really only need to be up for certain special occasions, like Memorial Day, and I know it's work, but we're gonna have to do something about taking care of them instead of leaving them up year-round. Because otherwise they just sit there empty with no flags on them. And if it requires a committee or part of the parks, because it comes under, I believe, the parks budget.
No, cemetery is its
Oh,
own.
you've taken it out of, oh, okay,
Cemetery is its own.
all right. Is it under their purview, or does it come under buildings and grounds? I thought,
Cemeteries have just been handled separately as.
okay,
kind of
because
the-
I didn't remember what Chairman Johnson had done with it originally. I think he had a thought of it being under that area, so pardon me if that's, okay.
Where were you?
Well, if we had any concerns about the commodities or health insurance, we could discuss that through, and then for 2023 wages.
Anybody like to start in this one?
Well, I'd kind of like to see some data assembled on our current wages versus, so we use MRA data to figure out where we're at, and they've just released their latest set, but they don't cover government positions, but I'm sure there's something similar.
Which data do you use, Dan, currently?
MRA,
Okay.
So we, both through the clerk's listserv and through the administrator's listserv, there has been conversation about this. It's a range. I would say the most common number that we have seen is 4%. There has been numbers that have been higher than that. There has been some conversation that in municipal service that's difficult because you don't necessarily have a widget that you can raise the cost for to make up that difference. In addition, you don't want to get into a place where then you've outpriced yourself and you can't make up that difference in the future. So I did put in here for the consideration for some of those new positions that had been brought up, 4%. 4% is what I would say we have seen most often in listservs. Again, there has been some that have been lower and there's been some that have been higher.
I do know that there's a number of areas that have been coming up in the past, especially certain departments where they have been rather low. One would be the library and some of your workers in public works. And I think it's important that maybe we discuss a placeholder for some of those positions definitely and get them up to where they need to be. And I think if you look at some of what, my husband and I are fortunate and we're blessed for the companies we worked with for many, many years that we have pensions and what those pensions have been coming in at, looking at pension data across the board nationwide, what they're talking about for COLA and that, what the averages are, that maybe 4% isn't out of the range for maybe some of these positions, but I don't know across the board if that's the correct placeholder. Maybe somewhere between 3 and 4, I don't know. I don't know across the board, maybe, I don't know. But I also think that maybe we're getting to a place again too that, granted, employee retention is always important. I also think that talking about, where you work and enjoying where you work is also very important. When we had talked about it years ago, Dan, that maybe we're getting to that place again too, that performance is also very important. So I don't know, that maybe next year might be the year that we finally talk about pay for performance. But that can be another conversation for another day. But if we're talking placeholders, 3 or 4%, what are you looking at with, granted, you said it's not government, but what is your MRA data?
well, it depends on the role. There's been a lot of movement over the last 2 years, right?
Right.
And the role, the region, the scope of work. I mean,
Across-
there's no across the board, oh, it averages out to
Right.
3 or 4%. It's all over the board for
Right.
us. So
And working from
I
home,
would just like to see a
it's,
subset of data as a point of reference for us. If you don't know what's going on around you, you don't know how well you're doing or not, right?
exactly.
So,
The other thing, Jamie and I were discussing this earlier too, we're talking about the CPI index going up.
Yep.
And Social Security is somewhere between 8 and 9%, however, a lot of people don't live on that. We have a pension also, but that's fixed, that doesn't go anywhere. So it's just, it's kind of a
What are
conundrum.
you laughing
with the-
about, Bob?
No, I was just laughing about the pension being fixed, because
It's fixed.
I'm in the
yeah.
same situation.
Oh,
So it's kind of a conundrum too,
Blessed.
because these folks, a lot of the folks here are on Social Security, but then if they get the pensions, they might get that big increase in Social Security, but they're not gonna get other raises. We do have other savings, of course, but then we also wanna make sure the employees are covered with the increase in the CPI, so we got a lot to look at for this, but I don't think we have to come up with a number tonight. It's something to start thinking about when we start getting into the budgets, but we gotta think about the folks.
We certainly can think about it for tonight, but again, when we come on the 15th, we're gonna come with a series of budgets. Each one of our budget meetings will add a different series of budgets. So when you see your first set of budgets on the 15th, it'll have a number in it, right? Because otherwise it would be difficult
Is it gonna be the same number across the board? That your 4%?
unless there would be a conversation that would be something that would be different than that. Otherwise, it would be a percentage across the board.
What's the starting point?
Now, what Lori said, there has been times where there's been position adjustments because it's felt like they needed to be adjusted with scale, with market. So then those have been related to positions.
And primarily for department heads,
No,
in our case.
we've also done them for library staff. 2 years ago, we did a position adjustment for library staff to bring them up. We did public works and we did an incentive for CDLs, so we've done them in a variety of areas.
and one of the first things that came off of the ARPA funds before I was reelected, and, well, you got reelected, but, I mean, was the first check was hazard premium pay, so, I mean, but I think what they're getting at here is they need a placeholder to start somewhere, correct, Jamie?
Yes, we'd like a little direction on where that, because I don't want to bring a number and the conversation to be like, well, how did we get to that place?
But then again, too, then you don't know, because I remember a year where we started with, we thought 20% was great, and all of a sudden it came in at 28% for health insurance, and that was a shocker. So it's like you never know, but then I don't know what your budgets have been the last few years either, so you just never know, but yeah, they say 8 or 9% for COLA, but then you might be surprised and it's 5% in the consumer price index. So, and like Dan's saying, it's all over the board depending on the position, because you got people still working at home and some people are coming in. So you don't know until we have something to really look at and solidify it. We need some data from you guys, so.
Again, I would say from the municipalities, from the conversations on the listservs, our most common number has been 4%.
That's what I was gonna say. For a starting number, that's probably not bad considering the inflation that we're going through right now. I mean, it doesn't make up for the whole amount, I understand that, but who knows what's gonna happen by the end of the year? It could go back down.
I don't know if I'm comfortable with 4% across the board.
Dan?
What are you comfortable with?
Let's come up with a number.
what do you want to put 5% across the board for starting budget, and then we're gonna tighten it up from there?
My initial number to her was 5. That's what I was thinking, but again, it's a starting point, nothing's set, but we have to.
And I'm saying 5, assuming that we might have some corrections to make for
Sure.
certain individuals, and that's an
Agreed.
assumption, so.
Dan?
It's always a tricky one.
Yeah.
What are the police getting next year?
Great.
What's in there? That's what was negotiated.
Right,
last
I
year. If you
understand.
would make a determination for something
No.
that,
Then 3, definitely 3 then. And then make the adjustments from there.
Huh?
I'm good with 5. I don't want to send a bad message. We can always take a union wage and raise that too, go over and above union. Opinion?
Then meet in the middle, 4.
I don't know
We
that there's a comprehension of what we're,
Well, it's a
Yeah,
starting
there's a
point. I don't have a problem with
comprehension.
four is a starting point, and
Four's a
we can go
starting
from there. We
point.
see
We
what,
have insurance, we have roads, we have other things we need to do
we'll see what
here.
we have.
okay,
to
but I
spend.
wouldn't base, so the police have a union and with which there was a negotiation that occurred. They also have future years increases already negotiated. We're talking about our salary and hourly folks.
That'll come down.
Completely
I mean, I
separate.
just threw it out there.
Yeah.
It's not set, we're not voting on that part, but it was just, we're giving them a starting
We're,
point.
we're giving them, this is gonna be our buffer for whatever adjustments we need to make. We might as well have something, we don't wanna get a budget that looks good and then all of a sudden we gotta increase a wage here and there and now we gotta cut something else. So why don't we start a little high and conservative on the budgeted increase? And then if it's less than that,
I
great.
see what you're saying.
That's my perspective on
I
it.
see what you're saying, yeah.
My only thought is how are we gonna pay for it if it's 5% or higher? I mean, obviously there'll be an increase in the tax levy, but,
But-
we'll cover that.
I did ask Jamie to come up with a list of unallocated funds. We have funds here that are unallocated, basically. So there's a bucket there. Hopefully it's large.
It's, no, it's not a large bucket. And you, because you can increase by net new growth or net new construction, there will be an increase, but, I mean, this is why we had the priorities conversation, right? Because if the priority is roads, or the priority is Firewise, like then is that where you wanna direct funds, right? Then you're not directing funds to someplace else. I don't have this conversation because we're able to do it. We have this conversation as a starting point, and I do think you should be thinking in the back of your heads, if those are our priorities, what are we not doing? Or what are we doing less of?
You've got 20% as a placeholder for
Insurance at this
insurance.
moment.
And what was it last year, current year?
What did we put it, it wasn't that high that we put as a
No, I think it
placeholder
came
last
down.
year. I think we did like 8% last year,
So that's eating in a little more of the,
yes. And we will know more once those numbers are released. I mean, we did, at one point in time previously, the town had Security Health that we actually contracted with separately to provide health insurance, but, so we know that they're a local provider, but we still wanna leave that buffer depending on how costs come in. And that's not to say, forgive me if I've repeated this before, but in the state plan, you have 14 providers that you could go to that are within the plan. You would select from those 14 providers, and then there's a dollar amount that we can cover up to. Now, last year, when we went through this process, we implemented the wellness plan because our tier 1 provider went down, that coverage went down substantial for Adams County. So we hope to make up that difference through our wellness program. Now you have to do wellness activities in order to meet that. So, I mean, we suspect there might even be some jostling within that depending on who comes in as those providers. So it's not to say because they added Security Health, then we all take Security Health. You could take any one of the providers that are listed in there, and then you have a certain dollar amount that we can match just for that premium too.
And we might not even know how much we need to fund their HSAs. We might wanna add to their HSAs. We might need, not want, we may need, right?
Yes, and last year with the wellness, that's what employees had the choice. They could take it as a cash taxable payout, or it could be put into the HSA and that's pre-tax.
one other consideration too, these are public hearings, and we come up with a number, if you're saying 5, 6, whatever, the employees are gonna hear that, and all of a sudden you come back with 3 or 4.
Okay, we're talking about
I know.
budget.
Yes, I know
Everybody
we are,
who's
for
listening, we're
sure.
talking about putting a
hear
budget
you.
together. It doesn't mean that's what we're doing.
I
We're
know.
months
They hear
away
what they
from
want.
saying
That's-
what we're
They'll
doing.
hear what they hear.
I'm
you know
glad.
that.
Well, hear what I'm saying, and that's my intention. Thank you.
Yeah.
But when,
All right, we still gotta come up with
I would
a
feel
starting
worse
point.
putting out a high number and having to come down, Dan, than start here and go up.
Okay,
So
well,
we
in the
would put-
absence of any data in front of me, that's what I'm saying. So fine, make it 4. You
But
know, I'm
why
done.
are you
I'm
getting
done.
some, but yeah, if we start at a reasonable point and we get some data, we can always, but to just wait for data and not have any number, we need a number to start. What?
I heard a comment from out, somebody out in the audience said one.
Get the tar and feather out. I think so.
Let's, in exploring data, because I don't know that we've ever, for the union contract, we have explored what are our comparables. So maybe let's just take a second and follow that thought. What do we feel are our comparables that would be the most meaningful data on what they are offering for raises? Would it be,
Who's they?
would it be Wisconsin Rapids? Would it be Mauston? Would it be
Yeah,
Adele's?
I'd be plugged into communities where our employees are likely to go if,
Yeah.
if they were to seek alternate employment.
So again,
Of course, that doesn't mean you have to go lockstep with what everybody else is doing. There's other variables, but if we're sitting back here and it nets out to a 2 and change increase for most of our folks, but we find out that that doesn't even get them to entry level somewhere else, we've got a problem. That's the kind of data that I'm interested in.
Well, how many months ago was it that I showed you an ad for, where was it, Preston? Their public works person was, what, they were advertising for $24 an hour? Here, let's see our chart here. What is a public works person here?
again, I think this is where it helps to,
That's Preston, the town of Preston.
what do we, so the town of Preston in Adams County has a much different public works department than our public works
Correct.
department. Yeah, much different. So, again, for the union, I think there are 7
Yeah,
municipalities.
that one's easy to
And we've
figure
said
out where we fit.
that those are comparables. Are there municipalities that you feel strongly should be in those comparables? I guess that's the question, that we would say, we always wanna know what Wisconsin Rapids is offering, we always wanna know what Marshfield is offering, we always wanna know what Portage County is offering. Is there somebody in that list that we feel strongly that we need to have on there?
Well, I think
Cause otherwise I also don't wanna provide you a whole bunch of comparisons and you're like, well,
Nakusa and Grand Rapids,
Coosa,
right?
Grand Rapids, yeah, that's exactly what I was gonna say.
Stevens Point, Plover.
But I think Point and Pulver, it starts to become a different market.
Why? People commute up there all the time.
Okay, but
Why?
you're talking about government entities that are much larger and likely compensate better. Cost of living's higher there than it is here. You gotta stay somewhat comparable.
Yeah, Point
In a region.
especially is different than us.
The rents at the apartments over here are going up all the time. $1,200 with a garage, no utilities.
I kind of drew a blank on the HSA. They're not matched or anything, are they? Their employee contributions, not our responsibility.
no, we provide a contribution to the HSA.
We match?
We don't match after last year, if we do half in January and half in July,
We contribute.
but we contribute.
It's a set amount.
It's a set amount.
All right, I'm gonna start down the road. Bob, what's your suggestion?
I think for a placeholder, just to get started with our discussion and see where we come out on other items that are in our budget, 4% is a good starting point.
Dan?
I'll go along with that.
Dan?
4 is fine.
4.
4? I agree, 4.
Is that a
Who's your start?
consensus?
That's a consensus. So that's a 4. You got a starting point.
It's all right.
Okay.
And do you know when you're gonna have the available funds? You should be able to figure that out soon,
What do you mean available funds?
Funds?
the tax revenues
We
You get-
just did August settlement, but we won't have.
for next
other-
year. I'm talking about next year, estimate of,
Oh, you mean our levy worksheet? Yeah.
Yeah.
We will have, now that we have finalized, we can put together a levy worksheet.
okay.
Usually what we do is a draft, we have Ellers double check it, and then we will know how much
You gotta
extra.
Share that as soon as you get
Yeah.
that then?
Yeah.
Okay.
Remember, when it's been about 2%, it's been about $37,000 to $40,000, right? So. It'll be more, but it won't. I want
No-
everyone to get excited.
No commitments. All right. Does that cover all your bases here?
Yep.
Good.
Do we need a vote on that? No, we have consent.
I think you're just giving direction for preparation consideration of the materials for your budget meetings.
All right.
Consensus.
Number 13, discussion of possible action, conversation of urban and nuisance deer in the Lake District area.
Now, what,
So I did include at your place tonight 2 pieces of information. I had noted in the memo that I was having a conversation with Erin Grossman, who is the wildlife biologist for our area. She was very helpful. She did provide the state statute about the authorization to remove nuisance animals. And then she also provided me this contact about the wildlife damage abatement and control grant. So just a little bit about maybe a starting point of options. At the last meeting, Supervisor Barheit had asked that we would have a conversation about nuisance deer. I did start the conversation with Adams County Land and Water, and Land and Water now is part of the Planning and Zoning Department. They answered to Planning and Zoning, so had contacted both. There isn't a place for urban nuisance deer within the county. There is a place if they were ag-related nuisance deer, but not urban related. That would all be handled by the DNR. That led to a connection with the warden. The warden said you have to work with the biologist. Erin again was very helpful. We do have limited options in what the DNR could provide. It's really a application for a nuisance permit. A nuisance permit would allow for individuals to get nuisance tags to harvest deer. If those deer are harvested, if we would be approved for a nuisance permit and receive nuisance tags, those deer are required to be utilized. They cannot be wasted. They have to go to a processor. The processor would test the deer for CWD, but that would, they couldn't be used, they would have to be utilized. She was very clear about that. But we would have to, in order to get a nuisance permit, show our abatement efforts to date. So are we educating the public about not feeding the deer? What are we already doing in order to receive that nuisance permit? So there isn't any other system that the DNR necessarily uses for urban and nuisance deer than that nuisance permit method. And she also did just reiterate that it isn't something that they do often for towns, right? We're an unusual town that we have an urban area. Most towns have a more agricultural, they're more spread out. They don't necessarily, I mean, I grew up in a town. I have way more deer here than the town I grew up in. So it would be a slightly different application process and consideration process from the DNR perspective, because it's not often something that a town completes.
How would they determine how many nuisance tags they might grant, do you know?
They would do it likely off of population, and we would have to do a calculation of the number of nuisance deer.
And none
Well,
of,
you can count 150 in one field, so I
yeah, I
mean,
have a video of it.
maybe that would be enough.
this is a particular neighborhood, is it not?
No,
This is, the person that talked to me about it, it was in a particular neighborhood by her home, and
Well, there's certainly down in the peninsula between Sherwood and Camelot, but even outside of that, I mean, you go down 8th Avenue, all the fields
can
in
see
the
it there.
neighborhoods, holy cow.
you can see a deer any time of the,
Yep.
after 5 o'clock, between 5
Any
and
time of the
6:30.
day they'll jump out on
But
you.
even then, no, in the evening, you can almost be guaranteed to see a deer somewhere along
But-
Manchester and Apache along in there.
but then that's outside of the Lake District too.
It's not.
Well, what does the Lake District have to do with this?
Well, that's why it's on here as a Lake District. Who's,
Yeah, I think it's, you're in the Lake District in your house,
We're all
right?
in the Lake District.
Yeah.
Along the other side of 8th in those fields
They're not.
wouldn't be considered Lake District, but they are adjacent to Lake District, but, and I apologize if I caused confusion, because I did put Lake District, because the DNR asked, is there an area? And I don't know that we are talking that deer are a nuisance on the north or the south side of town, right? Like if you would do the nuisance permit, you'd have to put a boundary around where you're discussing.
Well,
Where did you see the 150?
That was,
Ninth and D,
yep.
I saw them there about 4 years ago, about 150 of them there.
Yeah.
About 4 years ago, yeah.
Right.
I saw them there too,
I got a video on 8th and D.
yeah.
Chairman,
Yes.
I have just a general question for the administrator. So, when you had spoken about the abatement efforts, did they give any other examples of what they'd be looking for there? I heard education related pieces. Did you get any other examples of things that, abatement efforts that they'd be looking for to view it as enough to grant a application?
Do you allow harvesting of deer during deer season in applicable areas? Because the DNR feels that's the first ethical and legal way of harvesting. Do you have hunting on town-owned property, and are there deer that are being harvested there? And when she talks about abatement issues, can you identify places where people have put those into place? Covering compost piles, putting a secondary containment underneath bird feeders, those methods.
Sir, you had a question, you want to go to the speaker for this?
My name is Tom Kemper. Last year I applied for some permits to hunt deer on town of Rome land, especially Sherwood Forest. If you guys need anybody to come in there and take a deer or two out of there, I'm open again. I passed all the background checks, talked to the police chief, talked to you guys, so I've done all this stuff. I'll even use my own tags. So, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Would, no, there's another question here. During the deer season, and it's bow season, obviously, would that be like, part of the abatement process, would that be where we would advertise it, that there's tags available for the deer in our residential areas?
Likely,
'Cause we haven't done much, as far as abatement,
Have to,
we have,
because it's all private property.
Yeah.
So again, if you did apply for the nuisance permit, you're gonna put a boundary around where you're talking, and you're gonna have to discuss with the DNR how you're gonna handle it. Most communities, the vast majority of communities, hire a sharpshooting firm. That sharpshooting firm is trained, they're insured in case something that happens, and it's safer.
Rifle or bow and arrow?
They're crossbow or bow and arrow. Then the town would, probably between our town-owned property, and if there was property owners where the sharpshooters felt that it was safe, they would enter in those into an agreement, and then once the number of tags that the DNR would provide would be achieved, that would be the end of the call.
I would like a little bit of clarification here, because the person that originally spoke to me, I believe spoke to Carl, and I thought it was within a specific neighborhood. Now this sounds like it's going outside of that neighborhood. So are we talking to, I'm asking Jamie.
Okay.
I thought it started in a specific neighborhood, and now it sounds like it's going outside of that neighborhood. So I thought this was in the peninsula area, that these were stuck on this peninsula near Kingsway, and there was a particular home where they were gathering. These deer were starting to get sickly, and they were getting to be too many of them. So now it sounds like it's going outside of this neighborhood, and it's in this agricultural field where you have films of them now being more. So Jamie, were you contacted also by this person where it's in this particular neighborhood? Versus what Bob and Dan are talking about?
Not outside of the town board meeting where we had the gentleman that.
Which is the same person that,
That's down in the
Express the
peninsula.
concern.
He lives down in the peninsula.
All
Yes,
right.
there's a problem in the peninsula.
All
That's
right.
where the conversation started.
all right.
However, my opinion is we have way too many damn deer in this town.
Well, I'm sorry, not on our side of town, and we happen to like our deer, so,
Well, that, I know
Let's
we're gonna
not
have,
start
we're gonna
this
run
pro-
into that argument at some
Yeah.
point, but over by us, holy cow.
all right, well, see, now we're talking, all
I-
right, so
let's-
we live in a
we're-
woods.
The whole conversation, my understanding too, because I had a female contact me about the issue, and it was in the peninsula.
Yes,
But
Let's help the DNR, let's educate people. You can't feed the deer.
Yeah.
And we need to start writing citations when people are caught feeding the deer.
Okay.
Sir?
But you're talking about the peninsula in Lake Camelot, and it's about an area where these deer are now starting
Yes,
to
those are-
procreate, and they're getting
that is-
sickly,
yes,
and if they're sickly, then we need to get rid of them. So let's let
Well,
the
let's not-
county and the DNR focus on that little population of deer, which they're also prolific swimmers, and
I was
let's,
gonna say, they're not trapped on the peninsula necessarily, they can swim.
right.
But they
They
have
can-
no desire to leave.
Yeah, there's.
Well,
Because
they're
somebody,
being
so
fed,
let's
that's
cite
all.
the person that maybe is the problem and educate the person that's the problem before we go on and start killing deer
The
that
problem
maybe.
is just not on the peninsula itself, there's
Well-
deer everywhere.
But,
Well-
again, we're talking nuisance deer, and this is
Well, at
what
what
they
point
brought
is
up.
it a nuisance? Because there's more.
Well, there's.
I commute
There is a deer.
112 miles a day, and you know where I'm going to see 85 deer right here in the town of Rome.
I
Two
did it
different,
for
two
12
different
years,
operations
Dan.
handle it, okay? The deer you're talking about in the field that I saw too is handled by the USDA. They handle agricultural issues with
Okay,
deer.
so-
That's a whole different
Should we
issue.
reach out to those farmers? Maybe they have a problem that
If
they
they
want
do,
assistance.
that's a
Our
USDA
problem.
issue. But we're talking with DNR right now, and that's gonna be on the peninsula. And that's really all we're discussing right now, as far as I know. We're not-
Okay.
I didn't
not
think we
looking
were
at anything else.
talking
Sir?
about just the
Go ahead.
peninsula at all.
I thought we did it originally, because that's the only complaints I've had. I've seen those deer, but again, that's an agricultural issue. That's not a nuisance issue like what this.
I would grant,
They-
fine,
they
if
look at
that's
it
an
two different ways.
agriculture issue, that's fine, but they're not confined to that field.
No, they aren't, but that's a separate issue. I mean, this is, and we are talking two different departments, either DNR or USDA. You can't do them both, you have to do them separate.
Well,
I
I
already
think
talked to USDA.
The problem
They sent us
area
to the
needs to
DNR.
be expand beyond the peninsula.
I don't-
That's not our problem, though. That goes
this point.
beyond a town problem, and I don't
It's a
think
town resident's problem if I live in the town and there's deer eating everything I have.
Sir, go ahead.
One more thing, the town of Little Chute, I think they stopped it now, cause they have a park that they had population with deer. They opened it up to citizens or someone, got a pass shooting test and all that. They didn't get a private people in there, and they got rid of all the deer, but they opened it up to the locals that wanted to shoot a deer. So, and they didn't do any hassle, so someone can contact Little Chute to see what they did as far as the laws and shit, stuff, but they did it for years and took deer out of that park.
Good.
I-
Okay, we need agreement here. We're just talking about the peninsula at this point. That was the issue. The DNR is not gonna care about the fields. That's the other issue.
Fine.
We're dealing with them right now, and if we can
What-
get something done, it's gonna be through them for the peninsula.
So what meeting would you like me to invite all the peninsula folks here to express their opinions?
I'm not arguing with them. I've seen them there. I see them across the channel all the time. And I've seen emaciated deer also. So there is an issue. Keep going.
Well, the
Moving
DNR
along.
The DNR had expressed that if they are agricultural in nature, the owner of the farm can always apply for a nuisance tag. Now, nuisance tags it's an open system, so if you're a farm and you apply for a nuisance tag and you're allowed so many deer that you can take out from the farm, when you do that through the DNR, anyone can hunt that day. So if you present and say, I wanna hunt your nuisance deer because you took a nuisance tag, then that can be done.
You gotta let so many hunters in.
In the situation of urban deer, where maybe we are in a more urban setting, I think the DNR feels that if you're going to pursue sharpshooters are safer because they do have the insurance, the safety, they already have the training. When the deer goes to the processor, we could still have a list here that people could sign up for that processed deer. So again, because the deer can't be wasted, if there are people that still want venison, they could sign up for that processed deer that the sharpshooter would drop off at a processor of our choice.
Would they go
first
to-
it has to be tested for CWD.
It does. Yes, the processor has to
Would
test
they
it.
send them to food pantries?
I guess if that was our decision, we would pay still. We'd have to pay for that processing and then.
Just a thought.
Yes.
But I still wanna make sure nobody's killing. We're going after this, we're obviously talking to the same people. Because when I told the person this was on the agenda tonight, she said she was texting you, but she had already talked to Dan. So obviously they're not here tonight. So now Bob and Dan are talking about deer in a field. So we've gotta make sure we're all talking about.
We're not talking about deer in the field. That was just an example as to how many deer there are around here.
I know there are
We
a
got a
lot,
lot. We have a lot.
but we also
established
live
that.
in the woods, so we have deer. We also have fox and we have geese and we have pheasants.
Go back in
Anyway,
time,
it's-
you know,
the other
20,
thing,
30
getting
years ago,
back
you
to it,
didn't
have
have
we
this many deer.
done
around.
any abatement issues? I don't think we have. I don't think we satisfy that qualification.
No, I think we would have to do some and the DNR did send me some, materials that they put together about abatement, which we can share, share with the community. And, I mean, maybe we could even invite Aaron and do something for Channel 300, some, you know, a conversation about what it means if you feed the deer and how that harms the deer. We can go down that path, yes.
And it's more than one person. I know of a couple others that are feeding deer.
I'm sure there are a couple others that are, yes.
So we talked about that abatement issue, which sounds like, there's not really been any training in not feeding the deer, or protecting your bird feeders. I know mine get eaten up every night, even though I have a fence around my yard. It's not tall enough, they can jump it. Well, that's okay. But, the other, where was I going with that thought? I can't remember where my thought was going now. Oh, no, never mind, I forgot my thought now,
It'll cycle back.
probably.
Jumping over
So
the
anyway,
fence,
Yeah.
eat your feeders.
going back, we identify the problem. We got deer, but we have to do an abatement program.
We have to show that we've done some
Yeah,
abatement.
and we haven't done
yes.
that yet,
Yeah.
so.
What if we start with the people that are the issue, helping with the issue, and having a warning and some tickets?
Yeah, to you tickets, that was my other point. So you mentioned, ticketing people for feeding the deer. Do we have such an ordinance?
Yes.
Yes.
Huh?
You can't feed it in Allen's County.
What?
And we can't feed them either, so.
Feed it,
So,
feed them, whatever.
Nick's got a,
just maybe a general comment to it, and I think it all cycles right back to what has been communicated from the contact of the DNR. Yeah, we do, but I think it also goes back to education, right? And
Yeah.
so I think, and you all can decide what you'd like to do with it, but some of this would be just maybe considering some of those abatement efforts that Jamie had listed off, deciding if you want to do, for example, a Channel 300 thing that goes out to the whole town, maybe education on what our rules and regulations are and what you can and can't do. Those are things we're going to have to show either way. I mean, when you get to the point of an application in determining boundaries and area and all of that stuff, the common denominator is some abatement efforts, and you just don't have that yet. And so, to your point, Supervisor Minter, I think that goes back to abatement too. You asked a question, it's a great question. Other people probably don't know that either. And so I think it starts with education. That's part of the abatement, we're gonna need it anyway.
well,
So that's our starting point, is abatement. And when is bow season? When does that start?
Well, it's 17th,
Let's-
15th, 17th September.
Of
When-
September, so we probably couldn't turn this all around in that time
Give me
frame.
a tag go by now.
I'm sorry?
Give me a tag by now.
Well, you can hunt on your own land or get permission
Well,
in
but
subdivision.
Sherwood
so-
Forest.
Huh?
I know.
well, when you say abatement, Nick, though, you're talking the broader scheme of things going out into ag fields and abatement within the town.
Not necessarily. So when I'm saying abatement, that's why I'd asked Jamie to give a list if she had, a list received from DNR on what they consider abatement efforts.
She's got,
And that was
yeah,
where
she's
she
got it
said
right here,
education.
right here.
She said allowing harvesting in the town. Do you have hunting on town-owned property?
It's right
Uh,
here.
what other thing? Yeah. So all of those things, right, are what they consider abatement. Now, education is a real easy one.
We can
right?
start with education.
It's an easy one, and then it's a check off the list.
Do
That's
you
fine.
think that maybe because you guys did so well with constant warnings about the 100-foot wake within each other with your association, could you start there?
Associations, yeah.
You did very well with that on social media. Could you start there with the feeding the deer education piece? Could you start there with the peninsula thing? And maybe we need to get warnings and citation, maybe out through nuisance with however we want to do that piece? I don't know.
Can we go ahead and do that? Get that out there, Channel 300, use the billboard, and then anything else, next meeting, come back with any other suggestions, but get started on that.
Yeah, and I don't know that we would have anything necessarily prepared for next meeting, but we can work on some.
New
education.
ideas for
Yeah.
abatement, or get some more leeway.
So, and if we did the grant that we could apply for, that would help, if we did pursue a nuisance permit, and if we did hire sharpshooters, et cetera, et cetera,
Oh
et cetera.
my.
That, is due every year December 1st. So if,
So that's not necessarily during deer season, they just come out when there's proper time?
Yes, whenever that permit would be granted. So, I only point that out with doing the education piece, that would allow us, I don't know that we would apply this year, that would allow us maybe a year cycle in which to put together some additional abatement methods that would be communicated.
And maybe for present company and other people in the town here, you can find out how they can apply to be a sharpshooter for local residents?
Okay, now you can divide the town.
No, you wouldn't apply, you would be a company, right?
However they work it, so.
Yeah, I mean.
See what's out there.
But when we did this, and when I lived in Stevens Point, when we did this, there was actually a company. It's called Bucks and Bolts. You hire them. Like that's their career.
Okay. Till next meeting, we good?
Yep.
Alrighty. Number 14, discussion and possible action, continued conversation on safety concerns, lake bed soil disruption and shoreline erosion caused by wake manipulation devices on Lake Camelot, Sherwood, and Arrowhead, specific to A, eligibility to provide input, one input per property in the Tri-Lakes Management Area. B, method input will be provided, and C, begin assembling input questions.
So I just included in the packet the 4 slides that relate to the kind of where we are in our ongoing discussion. I did put the eligibility to provide input with the goal of 1 input per property in the Tri-Lakes Management Area. Then the method, in order to provide input, knowing now what our goal is, I took out those other pieces about if we were going to extend it out further, right? Because if we're continuing to pursue on the path of 1 input, that narrows down what method we would use. So then, I did get the Tri-Lakes management list from Tri-Lakes on the 3rd slide. I did include that right now. That list is 7,221 properties. But wanted to have a conversation tonight about those, cause 1, there's lots of duplicates in ownership. We can take out the duplicates in ownership, but does Adams County get 1 input? They own several parcels within Tri-Lakes, or do they get no input?
Are they taxed?
They are not taxed.
They don't every day have a financial.
Does Meteor Timber get 1 input or no inputs? Cause they own several parcels. And then do businesses that are in there, cause there are some businesses, get 1 input?
Wait, they don't own frontage.
Again, Tri-Lakes management, I apologize, there was a question in the crowd, they don't own frontage. There are several within the 7,221 that do not own frontage.
Well, technically, they do, through beach clubs or lake association ownership. So everybody in the Tri-Lakes Management District has beachfront property either through direct access or through beach clubs or through lake association. So they do have a vested interest on the lake shore. Everyone.
Access, yeah, so, and I, obviously in Camelot and Sherwood, you would have deeded, and Arrowhead, you would have just access to
Right.
the lakeshore property.
But it also sounds like there is a subset of lakeshore property that's not in the Tri-Lakes, and I think those property owners should be included in the input.
There's no, the only ones would be the county parks, 2 county parks and the county boat launch.
But Supervisor Jamadi said that she has property that if it's just the Tri-Lakes district, she wouldn't be able to provide input for her property, or her neighbors wouldn't be able to provide input.
We're in a lake association, but it doesn't
They're not in
matter
the water,
though. It doesn't, you know what? I appreciate what you're saying, but what I'm saying is that everybody in this community is vested in those lakes, in the entire town. But we're being excluded, and it doesn't matter. What I was saying is a lakes association, we're not part of Tri-Lakes. So we won't have a say in what's being done here anyway, so it doesn't matter.
Well, it's not a vote either, remember, it's just an input,
Yeah.
a thought.
Right, but I appreciate what he's saying, but the point you're at now, and the step you're at is you're gathering input, correct? But you're really tailoring that input to achieve a predetermined end. You're limiting who has a say, right? Really, and only Tri-Lake property owners have a say.
Well, Tri-Lakes property owners pay extra in taxes to have the Tri-Lakes Management District that helps manage the
But I
lake,
did
so
that,
it makes
but
sense.
It does make sense to an extent, Dan, but just allow, again, humor me. I did that for 16 years, and prior to the Tri-Lakes part that I'm no longer part of, in that part of Lake Arrowhead, because it's considered the slummy part of Lake Arrowhead, jokingly. And there's no longer time for now a referendum for all of the town of Rome to have a say, because we've passed that timeline. Really, it's a predetermined end, and we're gonna just come back to a place where we as leaders are supposed to make a decision. So you've got these questions here, which I read them, you've all submitted your questions, I didn't submit any. But the enforcement part of that too is just gonna be, it's gonna be difficult, but.
What if we, Lori, what if we started off with just the Tri-Lakes area owners, and one owner, regardless of how many properties they have, and then allow other people interested, who think they have an interest in this, to submit a written statement as to what they believe?
No,
That
you're
would
fine, just
include,
keep
that would
going
include
down.
anybody who wanted to be, have input in the town.
No, I just keep going down your path. I was just making a point. It's just you're tailoring the input to really achieve a predetermined end, and you're going down this path. And I think at the beginning, we really had some great input from our staff and our attorney, and I really think this could be ended so easy, because it's really just really having an ordinance that would say no wake surfing on our lakes. It would take care of all of these problems, everything.
All right, well,
No wake surfing.
we're not ordinance at that level yet, but
course not.
we're still asking questions. But we did have other ones too. I would like to see something on the survey where they can just fill in their own, other, rather than just have, check off, other.
So, let's just circle back to inputs first, because I did, in the list I got from Tri-Lakes, what is deemed Arrowhead South is in that list. So Campfire, Feather, Hornet is all in that list.
On Tri-Lakes?
Yes.
We don't pay for, we're not in Tri-Lakes.
So,
There's a southern part, Arrowhead, that's not in Tri-Lakes. It was never added into it. They don't pay the taxes.
but they are on the list I got, right? So there might be
Well,
a update needed to the list,
Yeah.
because they are all on the list I received.
Is Lori on that list?
Yes.
Shouldn't be.
That Adams didn't send the right information then.
Didn't send you the right list.
I got the list from Tri-Lakes.
Well, yeah, but we got it from Adams.
Yeah. So we would have to revisit that. It might
But
be.
that sounds more like all the taxable properties.
Yeah, 'cause you said 7,100
Yeah.
something, and that's.
Yeah, now, that number
That's
is
all
high,
the
that's the
tax
town,
properties.
so,
So, but I also, I checked other areas and I didn't have, I don't have Badger on here.
I think we're around
Have
3,000
we settled
properties.
on the Tri-Lakes listing, first of all, for input or not?
Again,
I don't think we've
consensus-
decided on anything,
Yeah,
really.
we did it at the last meeting, yes.
Yeah.
That was it.
We're gonna stay with that then.
Yeah,
Fine.
again, they're all property owners, lakefront
Mm-hmm.
owners in one way or another. so.
What?
We can clarify then with the county if we do have the appropriate list.
We can actually run the properties against last year's list, because last year is just strictly taxpayers, and just eliminate the ones that aren't on last year's number. I mean, it doesn't matter what the name is, we can do it by property.
Then I would just continue with the question. So Adams County, no, we would take them off the list totally.
Yeah,
Meteor Timber, are we taking off the list totally? Or do they get one input? I would have the same question for,
where does Meteor Timber might be on the Adams County one, I don't think they own property in any of our, I don't remember seeing them on our records at all.
because there's on the list I received, there's a big piece of that. There's also a very big, all the lake associations have multiple properties. Do the lake associations get one input, or is there input by their members so they don't get any input?
Well, if we're saying one input per property, if one entity owns 15 properties, then we either have to say one input per owner, and then it's on the onus of the properties that are owned by 10 people to come together and put a vote in or put a input in, or we have to go one per property, and then if you're gonna have people that have 5, 10 properties, well, they might submit 5 inputs.
Non-binding anyways.
Yeah, it is non-binding, but
Did you contact the folks up at Presque Isle? Did you get a hold of anybody up there to see how they handle this?
They, again, they didn't take this method, they went to referendum question,
Yeah,
but they were sued about not being able to ask the referendum question, so it didn't make it to this ballot. They did win that lawsuit, it will go probably to a future ballot, but they will have to redo that process.
yeah.
So they didn't do the same method.
Yeah.
Doing the referendum is not what we're trying to achieve. Ultimately, we decided, right? Because that asks only the residents of the town. We were trying to get as
Right.
much input as we can from the people that
Directly affected,
are directly affected, and Trilix is how we narrowed that down.
yes.
Just one final comment, though, about the taxes. There are people around me and other people around outside of Tri-Lakes where there's very, very huge taxes that are paid. Some of them above $57,000 that do have boats, that do use the lakes, that have a vested interest.
And then again, I would just, I think we've said no to taxing entities. So if the city of Adams or Adams County would not get an input, but we send one then to Arrowhead, Camelot, and Sherwood, and they get one? Or are we considering that their members are getting one, so they wouldn't get any?
Yeah. Even fractional owners would have an input.
Well, you don't worry about that because they own
They're,
a parcel.
yeah, they're owning,
So
yeah,
they're
okay.
effectively getting an input.
Yeah.
And then if you are a business, if it's specifically to a business, do you want the business to then have one input?
They should, yeah, I think.
Are these, when you say it's a business, are these actual businesses or are these?
Commercial property.
Yeah.
There's a couple of them on Sherwood. Sir?
Tom Kemper, one more time, I'll get out of your hair. I'm confused on the lake, what does it say? Tri-Lakes Management. Does that mean that the people over by the golf courses all have, or are they in the Tri-Lakes?
What golf course?
Pardon?
What golf course?
Over just Arrowhead or whatever it is, right
Yes,
across the
I-
highway.
Most
Yeah.
of them, yeah.
Okay, I thought this was gonna be for lakefront property owners, beachfront property owners, and that's it.
But those people also pay taxes and they have part ownership of all lakefront. When at Arrowhead owns all the land around there.
Yes, I understand
Those people
that.
are association members, so they have a
Right.
vested
But
interest in that.
Do the golf course lots have
It doesn't matter, they have a vested interest in the association.
okay, so the Gulf Shore lots can put a dock up on Arrowhead, they got privilege to do that.
Whatever their rules,
I'm
I
just
don't think
asking.
so. I don't think so.
I just feel that,
They cannot, no, they cannot, they can only put in little,
I
in the
just,
marinas.
here again, I'm whining, but lakefront property owners, they're the ones that are being affected, they're the ones that should be able to vote. Somebody that doesn't live on
Okay,
the
but
lake shouldn't.
I'm on Camelot, I'm offshore, but I have deeded access to a property that
That's-
gives me lake access, so
That's-
therefore
so-
I am directly impacted
You
by
should
it.
get, to vote.
Right, so
Yes,
that's,
I got no
that's why
problem
we're
with
talking
that.
about
No.
Tri-Lakes.
All right, then I have one more thing, two more things. I'd like to volunteer my time to get on the committee, board, whatever it is, that's writing the rules and regulations for this.
That'll be us and that's our purview.
You know, what?
That'll be our purview. That, the ordinance will be coming out of here, it'll be coming out of this.
Aren't you gonna have some people from the public sitting in, so have their input, so?
We are, this is, for the question period, for the questions, yes, we're looking for input from the
Because I'd
public.
like to volunteer my time, I'm retired, I live in China now, so.
Well, it's, well, it's coming up, but I believe it's gonna be
That's
electronic,
fine,
so.
that's fine.
I have deeded
And then the
access
last
on
thing
the
is,
road. But I
the
have no
first
say.
sentence, I'm bringing this up
Exactly,
again.
that was my,
It says
your
safety
point, my point.
Exactly.
concerns. And that's word safety, is a long, big word.
We need to make this.
All right, we're not talking about safety right now, we're not talking about safety, we're
Okay,
just
that's
talking
fine.
about,
But we have that in there.
all right,
Thank you.
yep.
Hey, thanks for listening to me.
All right, next, keep going.
Ripco, do they get one? Do they don't get any? Wisconsin River Power Company.
They should get one.
Where do they have a property there?
They were on my list, so,
They got
I think
property.
you got the wrong list.
I think so too.
okay. We'll
We'll
review.
double check that and we'll get back to you on that.
Okay.
Excuse me, but not just to revisit this, it sounds like if the Tri-Lakes list is really weird and wacky, why can't we just get the list from the 3 lake associations?
That's it. They don't have one.
Yeah,
Who
they
doesn't?
don't keep us.
They don't have it. We have the tax log, so
Yeah, but
I'll go back and
I
look
get
at it.
mail all the time from the Lake Sherwood Property Association, because
If you're a member,
The
they're not all
problem is,
members.
she got the wrong information from the county. The county did the wrong sort on this.
Okay.
We'll get the right, it's not a big deal. We have to use it for the tax purpose anyway.
It's still a good conversation though, because once we do have an updated list, I'm hearing no to lake associations, no to
I-
non-taxables.
Lake Association?
Whoa.
I don't know honestly, I don't know what the point of it would be. There's 3, and ultimately their membership is
Yeah,
getting to
good point.
individually
Okay.
input. I'm
Okay. Point taken.
just gonna muddy the
Well,
waters.
wait a minute now. Why wouldn't the Lake Association be able to vote? They would be voting on my behalf.
But it's one piece of input.
Sure, that one piece of input is very important. They're voting on my behalf. They're part of the
Well,
Tri-Lakes.
it's not a, let's get back to it. It's not a vote.
It is a vote. It's a
It's not a
say.
vote.
It's a say. It's
No,
a say on my behalf.
Fine, include the 3.
This is the process you folks wanted.
What's 3 more?
Yes.
It's
what's
what?
three? Add them in, add them in.
Okay.
Add the Lake Association.
So lake associations will get 1,
Yes.
tax, non-taxable, Adams County, no, none. Ripco would get 1, and businesses would get 1.
Sure.
And then, again, we'd have to take out duplicates. So, follow up, once we have that final number, the communication with this subset of people, cause in the end, we'll have whatever that number might be. Are we thinking that we want to mail them a postcard that would say, here is the link to the survey that's been created, we want your input? Are we thinking we would mail them a letter? Are we mailing them the whole survey? Just starting to have this conversation on method, because that will sort of determine costs too, right? Because we would have to pay postage, and if you're gonna send them the whole survey, are you sending them a self-addressed stamped envelope to send it back? Those kinds of inputs.
Can you do it where they lock it down, where you gotta put in your address, and then that's it? You get to do your input, and you're done?
So if we did something where you did the online survey, yes, you wouldn't be able to proceed with the survey until you put in an address.
And the option is, if you don't do it electronically, you can come to the town hall and do it.
We could do that. We could say, or stop at the town hall for a paper copy. But information would be presented in aggregate, but there would be no anonymous inputs. You'd have to assign address to everyone that filled out a survey.
Address and some other personal identification to make
Yep.
sure.
I would say, I would try to limit, well, you can really limit's the wrong word, but the fewer paper inputs you get, the better off the tabulators are going to be, because then you don't have to have somebody enter in all those inputs. So I'd say if we're gonna have people stop at the town hall, maybe we could set up a couple of computers that they can do the survey on, or somehow or another. Just so you get the less paper you have, the easier it's going to be to see the results.
Again, if you have an open-ended question on it though, every survey is gonna have to be gone through at some. So
Yeah, but it'll still tabulate automatically. A Google survey, you can put open-ended questions in there, and it'll just make the spreadsheet really big.
Yeah.
Who's writing the survey?
we're getting to
Gotten
that
to
one
that
next.
yet.
All right,
Common.
That's
That's
the
common.
next piece.
I would like to be on that committee.
So I'm hearing as much online survey as possible, likely postcard, not that it would be mailing the entire survey to individuals.
The gentleman from Mequon, they did electronically, right?
I would have to ask, I'm not sure, and I think they hired a company that had helped.
Mequon has rivers. They don't have lakes.
But they did the survey. That was the process I was looking at, not the water.
And I not gonna undersell this. This is what we're putting forth will be very staff intensive, right? This is going to be very staff intensive. So, this won't be a quick process.
No. We're not gonna have a decision. It's gonna be effective for next year anyway, probably, so.
So then the last piece would be input on questions. I did provide a slide with the questions that I've received to date. I don't think these are necessarily the questions. I think there might be more questions. I think we might wanna slightly change these questions. I don't know that we wanna do it this evening. Maybe we wanna, devote some time at an upcoming meeting where we really go through what these questions are. I know I've asked a couple times if there are questions to submit them to me. That's what this list is, of the questions that have been submitted to me. But the next piece of it would really be spending some time and making sure that we're gonna get the data that we wanna see in the end.
We did ask others for questions, right, other than just folks here? Did we?
We have not put out a broad, provide your input on questions, no. I mean, not other than having the conversations here at town board. We haven't done like a social media post or something that would say, send in your questions, no.
Well, I think we talked about it last time. Ultimately, you gotta be careful with what you put on the question, right?
Yes.
Because you wanna get the right feedback. You don't wanna lead people somewhere. You want to keep the survey fair, so.
I think we got a good starting point. I think you're right on the questions, though. Maybe come back next time and just concentrate on questions. Review them, concentrate, finalize
Okay.
as best we can.
So then for next meeting, we'll figure out our list. And I'll put these potential questions on a Word document. If I get an opportunity, what I actually might do is put them into SurveyMonkey and print the SurveyMonkey, so you would see kind of the reflection of what that would look like.
I wouldn't even start that until you get the actual questions narrowed down. Don't do any extra work until you have the actual questions. Otherwise, you're creating more work than you need to before you even get. That's just my opinion, I'm sorry, but don't make any more work for yourself than you need to, because you already stated this is gonna be labor intensive. Are you sure SurveyMonkey's the way you're gonna go?
Well, we have a subscription to SurveyMonkey, so it would be unlimited inputs and unlimited questions, so.
But we're not even certain these are all the questions you're gonna have, so why even start it yet?
Yeah, but that's why I say SurveyMonkey, because we already have a subscription where, otherwise, other surveys, we would either have to buy a subscription or it might be
Right.
limited in the number of questions or responses.
I'm just trying to keep you from, because you got budget stuff to do right now.
Did it copy paste the SurveyMonkey, or do you have to type it all in?
You can do some copy paste, yes.
Just a thought. All right. We got direction on that, right?
Yep.
Okay. Number 15, discussion and action, approval of temporary Class B retailer's license for the American Legion Ryan Post 65 to sell fermented bulk beverages at the Lake Arrowhead Farewell Picnic event on September 4th, 2022, from 8 a.m. until midnight at the Lake Arrowhead South Lake Center, 1374 Rain Dance Trail.
Motion to approve the temporary Class B license for the Ryan Larson Post 65.
Second?
Any discussion? All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carried. Dates and items for future agenda meetings, 16 next agenda items.
I have one I would like to request. I would like to request, oh, jeez.
Is that right?
Did you have some first, or I can wait?
You can, go ahead.
I'd like to request an update. I saw again in the fire chief's report that he was meeting with Sand Valley, and I saw some comments and some of the notes and things in our packet. There was in his report that they were talking about size of connections and things like that. You had originally reported to us that they had put in, they had budgeted 10,000 for a high capped well, and we had talked earlier in the spring that they were putting that in, and that was their budget, but now we're talking connections and that sort of thing. So I guess I would like a better understanding of what's all involved with that fire suppression system and how much of that is actually coming back to the town, and how much more they're looking at or anticipating. So what are we all talking about there with a fire suppression system versus just a water supply? And what were they anticipating and what were we expecting? So what is actually that encompassing?
Okay.
Thank you.
Was there just one, or did you have two?
No, that was it.
I'd like to bring to the next meeting, just an update from We Energies, both on our current expansion project and where we're at. It's going very well. And some additional expansion, now that that line is going to be in place, that We Energies would like to, explore with the town. So I would put together some mapping that, or share some mapping that they put together at the next meeting.
Sure.
And then we will have the return of item number 14 to focus on those questions. I would put the return of deer if I have something more substantial to share. Otherwise, we'll wait. We'll hold on that one for the meeting after.
Okay. All right, 17, next meeting date and time?
Next meeting date and time, believe it or not, is September 1st. We are already to September. And then just a reminder that we'll start the budget meetings after that. So on the 15th, we will meet twice that day.
Motion for adjournment?
Motion to adjourn.
Second the motion.
All in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carried.
Adjournment at 6:45.